Welcome back to Too Much Future, the show where we talk about the Fallout games after we play them. And today, we're not in Fallout 1. We're not in Fallout 2. And we're just barely on the last tippy toe, the last fingy tippy of Fallout 3 as it sinks beneath the waves to join the mighty Titanic. I'm Cameron.
I'm Michael.
Today we're talking about Mothership Zeta, the final DLC.
It's bad. Bye. Thanks for listening.
You know what? We're gonna have a real. This has been interesting. The shows this month are probably the furthest we've been away from each other's opinions. I think it's pretty good.
Oh my god.
I think it's great. Out of these DLC,
Yeah, sure. Okay, let's go for
this
it.
isn't the best one to you?
No.
Really?
No.
Interesting. Okay. Well, like all these other DLC, the way you get there is you get a map marker.
Mm-hmm.
You make your way to that map marker. I love it. I love how not on board you are for even the map marker. You go to the map marker, and lo and behold, there's an alien there. It's just hanging out. Just a little alien on the ground, dead. I guess I should say. It's hanging out, but it's also dead.
I was going to say, if it were alive, it would probably be filled with wonder at all of the things that we humans take for granted. Like flowers and hugs and things like that. But no, it's already dead.
Mm-hmm. Reese's Pieces. Bicycles.
Eleanor.
That's not as good.
Mm. No.
You know, they made a choice. Elliot. Let's take a little bit of a sidetrack here.
Okay.
I hate E.T. I hate it. I didn't like the movie when I was a kid. I don't like it now, especially they took all the guns away.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it. I don't care for it. I don't understand why it's such a touchstone for like our generation and people a little bit older.
I don't have very strong opinions on E.T. I do not know the last time I saw it. I remember sort of watching it when I was a kid and being interested in parts of it, but I don't know, if you're going to make me watch a Spielberg movie, like, I'm going to choose Jaws, like, 100% of the time.
Maybe that's it. I saw Close Encounters when I was like 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Way before I saw E.T. And I was like, this is where it's at. This is a man going mad and building a mountain out of potatoes and like, all this junk around his house. Yes, give me that.
Yeah. No, I can see how Close Encounters would give you kind of the real good ET stuff before you even have to touch ET itself. None of this like candy. Oh, he's like learning to be friends. Nah. These things are tall, beautiful monsters that have come from space to play Simon with us.
Mm-hmm. And take your dad away.
Yeah.
Your dad didn't divorce your mom. He was abducted by aliens.
Mm-hmm.
Steven Spielberg. That's a direct message from me to Steve. The other Steve.
Uh-huh.
Very interesting to me that two Steves at the same time basically are nominally liberal, right? But hate the government.
Mm-hmm.
Did a lot of work to instill a huge distrust in any kind of government capability or efficacy, right? And we're big into conspiracy theories.
Yeah. This is like, to a person who only listens to Too Much Future, this conversation must be very confusing because like all of our shows are being wrapped up together now.
Mm-hmm. Huge mistake on their part.
Convergence point. No, this is the most audacious crossover event in history. This is bigger than the Avengers.
Yeah. For the last episode of Too Much Future, like portals are going to open, and the ball spawn's going to come out, and the rule system for Dungeon World is going to come out. From dead shows, long forgotten. What's his name? Silverleaf's going to show up in a boat.
Mm-hmm.
All kinds of good stuff happening.
Oh my goodness.
All right, fine. Let's talk about it.
All right.
So you get there and you see a little alien, and you get abducted.
Yep. Zoop.
It's a pretty cool animation.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's happening for a very long time, but you're like in a tractor beam of some sort, and you're getting zipped up into space. And yeah, you're just kind of doing it, and you wake up in a weird parallel with the opening of the game,
Yeah.
right, where you're a first-person baby.
Uh-huh.
Here you're a first-person you, of course, a first-person adult, but you're like looking up from an operating table, and you see aliens operating on you, I guess.
Yeah. Little aliens, and they're like, "Meh, meh, 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 meh."
Yeah, they're the aliens from Mars Attacks.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to assemble a ragtag group of former professional boxer. I'm forgetting the other people in Mars Attacks.
If this thing had leaned more into the Mars Attacks, it might have actually been something that I liked.
Mm-hmm. Mars Attacks is great.
It is. But yeah, so these aliens, they like are doing alien experiments on you with a big thing with, I don't know, spikes and lasers on it, and then you pass out again, and then you wake up, and now you're like in a cell with a wastelander woman named Soma.
Mm-hmm. The body.
Yeah. Like,
wow.
I noticed that too. I was like, I wonder what's going on there. I don't know.
Nothing. Welcome to Fallout 3.
Yeah.
I wonder what's going on there. Nothing at all. Not a thing. It's just a word.
Yep.
But you do that. She says, "Hey, all right. Here's what we got to do. I got abducted. You got abducted. We know what we're doing. What I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna start beating the shit out of you." And that's going to make the guards come, because these aliens, their same operation is that of a 19th century jailer.
Yes.
And we're going to get them. So I'm going to start beating the hell out of you, and they're going to come break it up, and we're going to beat them up. And then we're going to stage a jailbreak on the alien ship.
Mm-hmm.
And you do that.
Yeah, and there's like different ways for this kind of conversation to go, but none of them vary a lot. You can basically just be like, Are you just going to like go with the flow here? Are you going to be obstinate about the idea of there being aliens and sort of just like constantly object to it on principle or something? But it doesn't matter. It's all just kind of like flavor for the treadmill that this DLC has put you on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because again, this is a challenge dungeon.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to say, this is maybe the reason I enjoyed it. It's got more in it, in a general sense. And it felt like the things I was doing, it was kind of the same task over and over again, but at least it was in 3 kind of cool, different environments with different like little interactive things in it. Because what happens after this is you eventually find a little girl named Sally. And you're like, because you're running around in this alien ship, you're trying to get out, and you're in like the prison part, where they're like abducting people and holding them or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you eventually find, oh my God, you just said it, Sally? Sala?
Mm-hmm.
Sala? Sally. Woof. So you find her, and she says, yeah, hey, what's up? I've been running all around this. I'm a precocious child. I've been running all around this spaceship.
I'm dressed like I'm in a new wave band.
Yes. I'm from the future. She doesn't say she's from the future, but she could be. She's very much in...
She's from the past, actually. She's from just after the bombs fell.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, like I had a conversation with her and she explains like she's from, like she was in the wasteland. Like the bombs had just dropped. Like she like seems very, she doesn't quite understand, like she knows a war that has happened, but she doesn't quite sort of grasp the scale of like what it means for society to have collapsed. And then apparently she was abducted and she's been, in stasis on this ship ever since.
Wow. Dang.
Yeah.
Well, so she basically says, yeah, I've been running around the ship doing whatever the hell I want for a long time. And, I can teach you how to get to the captain and murder him, because we all know, alien law.
Uh-huh.
If you kill the strongest alien, you become the strongest alien.
Classic alien law.
Very classic alien law. We all take those standardized tests in the 3rd grade, learn all about alien law. But that's the deal, right? So, and maybe I mean, I'm sure you have a laundry list of reasons why you didn't enjoy it, but probably I'm going to predict one of those reasons is that there's nothing interesting about these aliens.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Um, so the first DLC, Operation Anchorage, I said that reminded me very much of a like 2008 era Call of Duty game, right? It was the thought process behind that DLC seemed to be, what if we used our Fallout game engine and made a Call of Duty game? And
Hmm.
here the thought process seems to have been, what if we used our Fallout 3 engine to make a corridor FPS from 1998?
Yeah,
And
yeah, you're not wrong.
like that's good for what it's worth, and for reasons I'll get into later, it ended up not being fun for me. But also, like, primarily what this means is that there's not really sort of story here. The stuff that I really come to these games for, story or characterization, like these aliens are just they they are aliens. Like that is where they stop. That is where they start. There's something going on here also where there were aliens in at least Fallout 2. There might have been one in Fallout 1 as well.
Hmm.
And we never talked about them because we never encountered them. These are sort of like those weird events of questionable canonicity or textual reality that could happen
Yeah,
as you were wandering around the wasteland, going from settlement to settlement. You might find a crashed UFO and so on.
yeah. I found a crash Star Trek
Yeah,
lander.
yeah. So you found human aliens.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Even more disturbing, honestly.
Yes, raises a whole host of questions.
It really does.
But the idea, right, is that because of Fallout kind of coming out of this 1950s ray gun gothic retro future kind of thing, uh, it's UFO madness, flying saucers, little green men. It's that kind of thing, and I feel like there is so much you could do with that. With that kind, again, like Mars Attacks, like Mars Attacks is a perfect example of just like all of the weird like set dressing and visual gags you can get out of recycling this kind of kitsch. Um, and they just kind of do a couple things with these aliens, and that's it. Otherwise, they are things that run around and yell at you, and you shoot them.
Yep. Um, I'm trying to think of an additional thing that they're doing here. The thing about it too is like they're just raiders,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like there's not additional like cool stuff going on there in any kind of way. No like weird organizational mechanisms or like I don't know
Yeah, they're
mind
just
bullets.
Yeah, they're just like standing around in rooms. Like, there's nothing that you can figure out about them from like the places that they live. Like, they have workers, right? We know that they have workers who are like they look identical to the other aliens, except they wear little red jumpsuits. And killing them gives you bad karma. And when you first meet them, Sally is talking to you over the intercom or whatever, and she's like, "Don't kill them." But that's it. It's like okay, like. So there are alien workers, and then there's everyone else who is just an alien, and the aliens try to kill you. And then when you finally meet the big bad alien, he's just like the alien captain. And they always just chatter at you. You never get a sense for kind of like what they're up to. They are just kind of similar to Mars Attacks, actually. Like, the idea seems to be that they're just kind of like cruel, because you can get all of these like audio logs throughout the ship that are just like, here are all the various people that they've abducted throughout history. And it gets so tiresome, but I was listening to them as I found them, and it's just like, well, this person got abducted and then something horrible happened and they screamed, or they got turned into a monster, or they thought it was really cool that they were being abducted by aliens, but haha, joke's on them, we know that they're gonna get like dissected or what have you. um which just feels kind of like the bleak, whatever. Again, because in Mars Attacks, which is a pretty bleak film, at least the aliens have a lot of character. Like
Oh yeah,
they're kind of like cartoons, right, in that way, and so that sort of like helps. And here it's just, I don't know, they're little raiders who are totally non-expressive.
Well, after you get an additional little sidekick who is your 1980s required child,
Uh-huh.
and you run around the spaceship, you do in cryosleep, because as you said, people are like being put into cryo chambers and whatnot, and so you eventually like go and she says, "Hey, we got to get a teleporter. We got to use this teleporter to get to the top part of the ship. It's a bifurcated ship, I guess." She says, "Hey, we got to do that, but they've turned off the teleporter, so we're gonna have to go outside the ship in space to get to the top of the ship." Now, why that would work or why you would have to do that, not explained.
Nope.
Okay. How does this kid know that? Don't know. Unclear. But you got to go do it, and you take these people out of cryo sleep. And this is I think this is the coolest idea in the whole thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, hey, guess what? They've been abducting people for hundreds of years, perhaps thousands of years. And so you got there's a Japanese samurai guy there. Mm-hmm. Very much the Predator tie-in comic books, if you ever read those.
Yes.
So there's a samurai guy. He only speaks Japanese. Mm-hmm. So good luck with that. I think that's pretty good. That's pretty good content. There's a cowboy. Mm-hmm. There is a medic who was involved in the actual Operation Anchorage. Mm-hmm. And that's it, right?
Well, there is also an astronaut.
Oh, yeah.
Because we need that astronaut to go out onto the ship to do whatever for the teleporter, because he's the only one he can get through the airlock with that suit. Unfortunately, the astronaut has died in cryosleep.
Yeah, huge bummer. You never want to die in cryosleep. First rule of space travel, don't die in cryosleep.
Yeah, it's amateur mistake, honestly. It shows you how bad the Fallout version of NASA was training these guys.
Yep. Yeah. Do we know much about the space program?
We had to get bits. We had to get that satellite dish from the Museum of Science for Three Dog. But as far as what is going on with the specifics of the Fallout universe's space program, I don't think that's a thing that they've talked a lot about. I know we have orbital nuke launchers.
That's true. We should be able to turn those around on the ship.
Yeah, that might have been helpful.
But anyway, so you get them, and basically, this is the, I don't know, least interesting part of least interesting gameplay-wise, most interesting level design-wise. Because it is explained to you that in order to open the hangar, or the airlock, to get outside, you gotta shut down a bunch of generators. Mm-hmm. And so you gotta go to 3 different wings of this thing, and it just becomes a Skyrim or Oblivion dungeon. This is 100% the dungeon design of Skyrim at this point. Mm-hmm. I feel like I could see a lot of the Elder Scrolls in this. A lot of the technology and tools looks a lot like the Dwemer stuff.
Yes. Now I was going to say, this felt this whole thing feels kind of it hasn't happened, but I felt very early on in this DLC that if this had been better received or if it had made just enough of a splash, the aliens would have become the Dwemer of Fallout.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yeah, I think this is setting them up to be that, right? Of they're here all the time. They're doing stuff. They're interacting at all time periods. So we could always have the aliens in the game. Mm-hmm. And as you were saying, you were right, that pulls on a lineage of aliens already being in the game. But yeah, did not work out. But remember this, right? One of Bethesda's announced games, they've got the new Elder Scrolls game coming up, and then Starfield. They're quote unquote, perhaps space game, unclear. Mm-hmm. But I bet these aliens are showing back up.
Yeah. Oh, and I guess we should probably talk about, because the aliens, what is nice about this DLC is that all of these assets are unique to this, right? A lot of stuff is bespoke for this this little adventure, and the aliens have new types of weapons that you have to use because, of course, the alien ships are not filled with the regular ammo. So you're using alien energy weapons. They have like food that you can eat, like weird trays of like squids and worms, and it's not irradiated because they're not living in a post-nuclear hellscape. They also have crystals all over. I was just like, Eleanor was just shoving her pockets full of alien crystals because you never know when alien crystals are going to come in handy.
Mm-hmm. No one expects you to throw a handful of alien crystals in their face.
Yeah.
It's much like pocket sand.
Yeah, and this is sort of interestingly enough, I guess, the part that you're talking about with the kind of three little wings. It's like one is like the hangar bay, one is where they are like it's like the little manufactory for their robot drones because they have little like floating robot drones that'll shoot you, and you can also like activate them and control them yourself to fight some aliens with you. At about this point, I hit the level cap, and I wasn't really enjoying the game a whole lot up until this point because, as I've sort of talked about, the scaling on enemies gets really weird, especially when you're at the high end of the possibility space for your levels, because everything is just like a bullet sponge. Like I could just the aliens, there's a lot of them. They all have like little force fields. They don't have a lot of HP, but their force fields are really strong. And so I'm just
God, those force field enemies are awful.
Yeah, and I'm just like plinking and plinking and plinking, and it takes forever. And then I hit the level cap. And I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. I'm as strong as I can possibly be. There's a special feat that you can, I think they're still called feats here. I don't know. Perks. Perks is what they are.
Yep.
You
get special feat.
Yeah. Well, there's like a special like level 30 perk where you can raise all of your skills to 9. So I took that and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to have like, the just high possibilities for everything, just all these great rolls. And no, the gameplay is the exact same. Everyone is more of a bullet sponge because they've just leveled up with me. And now when I kill them, I'm not getting the nice little ka-ching sound effect of like having the experience like, funnel into my account, which is like, Pavlovian in its implications, but like is the only thing keeping me going in terms of combat for this game is just like knowing that it's like, ticking some sort of number up somewhere. So that's gone. And I still have all of this DLC left to do. Luckily, or perhaps mysteriously, I think all those alien crystals that Eleanor was picking up, caused some sort of fluctuation in the matter of space-time. Because Eleanor felt like a sudden weight in her pocket, in her inventory, and she pulled up her Pip-Boy and she took a look, and she had a new 44 Magnum in there that she had never had before in perfect condition. And very strangely, the Pip-Boy could not even sort of recognize it. Like it couldn't pull up a picture of it because I could highlight it in the inventory, but what the Pip-Boy would say it would say Pip OS error 26, file not found. And you know what? This Magnum has a damage rating of 9,455.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty big.
Yeah. So I equip this mysterious
My
Magnum.
weapons have a damage rating of like 40.
Yeah.
So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Most of the guns in this game are like the Point Lookout had some pretty high. It was like 70 something, 75 or something for like the shotguns that were in Point Lookout. So yeah, this very mysterious Magnum revolver with 9,000 damage behind it. I equip that and I just start one-shotting everything. And guess what? Like I'm getting through things faster, but I'm still not enjoying the combat.
Alien technology.
Yeah.
Weird that it can just warp video games that way.
Yeah.
This is what we say. This is what we call a reformation of the form content distinction. Is the alien gun itself changes the form of the video game. Okay, well, so you did that, and you're shooting your way through it. Yeah, those were all of the enemies for you. Did they all have the shield?
Almost all of them.
Oof. Yeah, it was like 1 in 10 or 15 for me, and that was still kind of sloggy. So I think that probably has something to do with the difference of our experiences. Is like if most of my enemies had that shield, I would have also been in a very bad spot here. I actually found the combat in this, as far as like bullet sponginess, to be much easier than Point Lookout. Point Lookout was hard. I was having to burn like a lot of resources to kill individual enemies, and here I could like fight a bunch. So that probably has something to do with it. Yeah, like I breezed through this in like an hour and 20 or something like that.
Lucky you.
Yeah, and if most of them had those shields, yeah, it's terrible. It's just bad. It's a really bad design to like scale your enemies that way, and to, I mean, we said this for all the DLCs, right? But it's just such a weird failure of imagination that only hurts the game experience. I just can't imagine. I'm sure there are human beings on the planet who enjoy it, but it wouldn't be me, you know? So, but you do that. So you go through the Robo Bay, and that one was one that I didn't find very interesting or exciting. It was, I couldn't figure out where to go because you eventually blow a hole in something.
Yeah, that was.
I got lost several times, and I know that many episodes ago I said, "Hey, I'm someone who doesn't get lost in Bethesda games, and here I am with a bunch of crow in front of me, chowing down because I got lost here.
Yum yum yum.
Nom 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 nom." Yeah, I just got lost here a whole bunch of times. But you do that one. Robo Bay, not very exciting. Hangar, pretty exciting because there's like a point defense at the end you have to do. You like gotta hold on to like the generator chamber, and enemies run beside this like, I don't know, force based. I don't know. It's like it's holding a ship together with these like force field towers. And as enemies run by, you can activate the towers to kill the enemies. I thought that was pretty cool.
This was actually when that very mysterious Magnum showed up in my inventory, and I just started like one-shotting everybody.
Well, if you'd used the towers, you could have one-shotted everybody with that too. There's that, and then there's, I really like that. Did you take the appropriate NPCs with you?
No. Like I thought that I could take the NPCs with me, and I looked it up later and confirmed that this was the case. But when I was talking to them, I never like quite located the like dialogue option that let me tell them to go with me. They were just like wandering around talking to each other, and I was like, well, I guess this is all they do. Yeah,
it's really weird the way it's handled, and it's not explicit. So what happens is that you begin with one of them following you no matter what, but if it's the wrong place, they won't go into it with you.
Oh.
So what you would have to do is figure out who was following you first, and it's probably Soma. You got to talk to her, say, stop following me, and then talk to the next person and say, you need to follow me. Because that's what messed up my first one, so I didn't take anyone to the Robo Bay with me, but I kind of fiddled with it a little bit and figured out I could take the cowboy with me to the hangar, and he like covers your back while you're like doing the what do you call it, like the force field stuff, and that's pretty cool because like you can hear him fighting in the background and stuff like that. There's that. You can take the medic. This one was really cool. You can take the medic to the last one, which is the cryo chamber, and so I really like the cryo chamber because there's like aliens running around, and you can hit the button to release enemies from the wasteland. Into, unfreeze them from cryo sleep, and they're all fighting. So there's like, I unleashed a bunch of raiders and some ghouls and all this stuff. I thought that was pretty cool. But then the aliens are experimenting on the other medics from the medics like crew, right? Or whatever his
Oh, okay. I didn't know if those were like, I found these guys. I didn't know exactly who they were, right? I took them to just be kind of like, here are some assets that we popped in to show that the aliens are taking people.
Yeah, well, so no, it's the rest of his like troop group. And whatever that's called. People are, I'm sure,
Troop Group. I believe that's true. I think Oliver Stone made a movie called Troop Group.
I'm falling to my knees. Bullets are going everywhere through the trees, destroying it. Fireballs. Charlie Sheen is there. Troop Group appears on the screen. Massive letters. Please, someone Photoshop that up for me. Send it to us on Twitter @RangeTouch. But so yeah, you go in there and 3 are already dead, but you can unfreeze 2 of them, and they come out and they're like mind wiped. So what they did in my game is they all went and grabbed alien weapons and started killing each other.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. And so I was like,
Thomas Hobbes. He warned us.
Yep, on a spaceship, we all know. Thomas Hobbes, this is like page 48 or something like that of the Leviathan. Thomas Hobbes says, on an alien ship, much like in nature, it's the war of all against all.
Mm-hmm.
And what can you do about it? But, so yeah, so he does that. Or they're fighting each other. I killed them because I was like, I don't want one of these. I don't want the strongest of these two surviving to kill me. And so I killed them, and the guy was like, I could have helped them. Why'd you do that? Anyway, I found some biogel. Like, he's really mad for 2 seconds, and he's like, oh, some biogel. And so after that, I could talk to him, and he would be able to make me edited biogel, which was like makes it a better stim pack. It's like a stim pack +5. So there's some cool mechanic-y stuff going on here that would be awesome if it ever appeared again in another Fallout game. But it just doesn't. Like, that's the thing for me is why I really like this. I was like, oh, there's some cool design stuff that's just not in any other Fallout game going on here. Wouldn't it be cool if this was in other Fallout games? No, it's not. Like, don't even think about it. But we did that, and you do all that, and then you eventually can go out on the spaceship. You're in space. You go up to the top part of the ship. There's really not that much that's interesting between here and there, here in killing the captain, other than the abominations.
Yeah.
What do you think about these? What's going on with abominations?
So the abominations are interesting because, again, I don't really know why they're here. I don't know what purpose they're serving, although I think from a game design perspective, they do serve a purpose, right? They're another enemy type. They narratively, what they do, they accomplish a couple things. One, they establish kind of the tenor of the experiments that the aliens are running on people. And two, they provide a pretty good kind of mechanism for here in the late game. Once like you are really like wrecking the aliens shit on the mothership. Mm-hmm. You can start opening up all of these containment cells that are holding these abominations, or like you start walking into rooms and the abominations are already out and they're fighting the aliens. And I should describe what the abominations are, what they look like. They are kind of, so they are in the way that the aliens as we have them are kind of playing on the traditional idea of like a gray / little green man. The abominations look much more like the Greys. They're taller, they're thinner, they've got sort of like a bigger, more bulbous head. And they also do this thing where when they see you, they point at you and hiss and then go running at you, which is obviously a reference to the 70s remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers with Donald Sutherland.
Oh, that's really funny. I didn't think that's what the... I totally pulled a different reference there, but it's basically the same.
Yeah.
I thought they were doing the point from The Thing. When out in the snow, because they yell too, right? Mm-hmm. They're like, "Wow!"
Well, that's what they do in Invasion of the Body Snatchers. He points and he like.
So maybe the Thing is also a reference.
Yeah, well, because the thing that we discover is that these are hybrids. The abominations are like hybrids of humans and aliens in some way. Why? Who knows? But again, I think it's kind of sort of to the general idea of Fallout is that a society exists to do horrible things and create weapons. Like that is like a premise of Fallout, basically.
It really does put some pressure on. So, because you might think "war never changes" is really like a phrase about like humans never change, right? Like you could easily make that jump. But what Mothership Zeta presupposes is, what if the universe never changes? Mm-hmm. Boom.
What if it's a war universe?
Well, there are other universes, perhaps, but our universe is a war universe.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, this is what the abominations are doing, and they will fight the aliens too, and they're just running around and screaming and so on. What did you think about them?
I hated them. I eventually, they're just terrible bullet sponges. They hit really hard. They hit as hard as a Deathclaw, easily. Mm-hmm. And what I did is I just I fought 2 or 3 of them, and then at the end, when you're kind of making your way toward the captain, you have to go through a section with 5 or 6 of them, And I just put a stealth boy on and ran by him. Put a stealth boy on, ran by them all the way to the point where I was standing right behind the captain with General Zhang Wei's sword, an electroshock sword, and exploded the captain with it.
I don't even know how the captain died because, like, I was just, like, pushing my way through these rooms, like, shooting everything, like, you know, all these one hits, and there's more and more enemies. I'm like, good God. At one point, like, you go into a room and you can see, like, there's a glass floor, and you look down and you can see the earth. And there's like a giant glowing spot that I guess is maybe some remains of the nuclear war or whatever, which is kind of cool. I like this idea of being able to look down on the ruined and irradiated Earth. But then I didn't know what else was happening, so I was like going over to the door at the far side of the room trying to open it. And while I was doing this, I guess the alien captain showed up as like a big like hologram head and talked to all the NPCs. Because then I turned around and the NPCs were like, "Did you hear what he said?"
Well, yeah, kind of. Well, so it's unclear to me. I mean, I guess I have a million things to say about this room. Number one, huge missed opportunity to not have like a view screen at the bottom that you can click on that would like show you different parts of the world.
Uh-huh.
That's such a better thing, right? And that would allow them to retcon some of the like the most gross parts of Fallout, which is like the rest of the world is obliterated.
Right.
You know, like show us Lagos. It survived. They just hate America. Right? Like do something interesting with it, right? America blew up the world, so they're just not involved.
Right. There are people on this planet who are thriving and they are leaving everyone else to sort out their own shit.
Yeah. I mean, what if it's the case that you like imagine this Fallout, universe, right? Huge chunks of the world are fine.
Yeah.
They just think that the U.S. and China in particular, we're not dealing with them. They're blown up. That's an irradiated wasteland. We're not going there. No one lives there, right? Like, come on, give it. There's some interesting stuff you could do with that that you would, of course, be responsible for later. So maybe that's why they don't. But there's that. This alien head appears. It's like a hologram. And it's like, as you said, like, wah, 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 and doing all this stuff. And it talks forever. Uh-huh. Like, it's just going and going and going. And they're like, exactly as you said, did you hear what he said? And they're like, well, I don't speak alien. And he says, well, you don't have to speak alien to know what he meant. So the whole thing is pointless. But that's not the alien captain. I don't think.
Okay.
It is the other alien ship that we're about to talk about. Yeah. It is their captain, like, talking to our captain. Why that's being shown here? Big question mark. Who knows? Because what we are about to find out is that not only is there an internal problem going on in the ship, meaning I'm running around and killing everybody, there's also an external problem, in that there is another alien ship that is fighting this alien ship. Mm-hmm. And we don't know why. Maybe it's to prevent them from being taken over.
Yeah. That was sort of that was my assumption, is that the other ship understands that this ship has been compromised in some way, and so rather than risk like me getting over to the other ship or whatever, they're just going to blow this up.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it makes sense.
Speaking of making sense, does anything that happens after this point make sense to you?
Yeah. When you're fighting the alien ship?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it might only make sense because I've played this before and I remembered how it worked.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this made no sense to me. Like, this final showdown, like, I had no clue what was going on, and I was just, like, hitting buttons, and then the game ended.
Well, there's, like, one button that maximizes your shield and one button that maximizes your laser, and there's, like, a little visualizer that floats on top of it. So you actually have to pay attention to the visualizer.
Yes. And, so, I mean, for the viewer listener out there, like, the game really shifts here. Like, the final battle after you've, killed all these aliens, and also you have to do this other stuff. You're, like, constantly, like, overloading these reactor cores or something to make them explode.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's just like, hit 3 things. The 3 things come up. Hit the 3 things again. The 3 things start glowing, and then a big thing starts glowing, and then you watch for a few seconds, and the big thing blows up, and then you're done. But then you go into like sort of what is kind of like this main command bridge or what have you. And all of your like, motley crew is with you, including Sally, and she's like, "Oh, this looks just like the cockpit on Captain Cosmos," which is a TV show that you see billboards for down in the wasteland.
They should have like gone another way and been like, "This is exactly like the aliens Grognak the Barbarian killed." And Grognak goes to space.
I mean, sure, it either way, it's just like, so why on earth is this cockpit exactly the same as something in human pop culture? Really makes you think, huh? But yeah, so then Sally like tells everyone where to stand, and then you are like looking out the porthole window toward the other ship. You're like floating over the earth, and each of you has a death ray somehow, because you also just sabotaged the death ray of this ship because the alien captain was threatening to blow up Earth with it, and that's one of the reasons why you killed him. But anyway, the two ships are like squaring off, and you have like just these like projected like hologram indicators in front of you that you're supposed to sort of like figure out, I think, in traditional gamey way through experimentation. But I just don't care. I'm just like hitting them, and I just like want to blow this other thing up. I am so frustrated by this point.
No, I did it kind of by the book. Beeping it around. It worked out.
And then at one point, like the power, they hit you with the laser, and the ship power goes out. So then you have to walk around the room and hit some other buttons to restart the generator or something. And
yep, again, there's like 80 people in this room with you. Why can't they do that?
Yeah, again, feels very, very much like a 1998 FPS.
Yeah, I mean, maybe part of the why I enjoyed it so much too is it's just like, despite being exactly what you're saying, that's also like a completely different space for Fallout. Fallout just doesn't hit those buttons, as it were. And so I was like, yeah, like little mini games that are happening while I'm like fighting an alien. Cool. Anything to prevent me from just standing in front of someone, hitting them with an axe 40 more times, right? Like, so I appreciated the maneuvering going on here. But after that, so you blow up this alien ship, and they're like, all right, cool, see you later. Like, there's barely any there's no off ramp for any of these DLC. I guess other than the first one, Operation Anchorage, where they all killed each other.
Yeah.
They should all do that. That's what happened.
Every DLC should end.
Yeah, every DLC should end with everyone turning on each other and killing each other. That would really like improve the Fallout DLC thing. Someone make that mod. You can call it Off Ramp. But yeah, so you just go home.
Yeah, and like everyone's just kind of like, I guess I'm going to hang out here, except for like two of the people who I think despawn entirely from the game or whatever. But yeah, like they're like, they just kind of and you can continue to come back to the alien captain's bedroom to like hang out.
Yeah, he's got a what do you call it? Like a nice little chamber to sleep in.
Yes. It's got a beautiful little sleep chamber.
But yeah, beyond that, that's it. That's the whole DLC.
Yeah. That's the end of Fallout 3.
Oh yeah, that's true. Well, what's Michael's big thought here at the end?
Michael's big thought on Mothership Zeta or Fallout 3?
Well, no, I think we know Michael's big thought on Mothership Zeta. No, okay. On Fallout 3. I mean, normally we would do a whole episode, but I don't feel like we have to. I think we could probably just spend the last 15 minutes of this episode talking about it.
Yeah. I mean, so the interesting thing about playing Fallout 3 is that in many ways it was the experience that I have had with every single game thus far, where I start out very intrigued by what this particular Fallout game is doing, what it may be up to, and then as we go on, I get progressively more downtrodden as I feel like it is just constantly whiffing every single opportunity it has and instead doing something much less interesting. That is more interesting in this context because I think it makes me start to sound like the sort of proverbial really irritating old school Fallout fan. The people I've mentioned before, who I think were the people who were getting me to play these games originally when I was a little teen on the internet.
Well, as Jay-Z said, right? I mean, eventually you live long enough to become the villain, right?
Yeah, it's exactly what Jesus Christ said. And the sort of the intervention that I would make, right, is that my point here is not going to be, as that point is often phrased, that Bethesda somehow ruined Fallout. uh,
Uh-huh.
it's more like, I think there's a very real thing here where Bethesda is not interested as much in the parts of Fallout that I think are interesting, right? The parts about dialogue trees and sort of the varieties of ways you can do characterization and build out a world through kind of narrative design, which I think Fallout 2 especially had some really good examples of, really, really interesting things going on. Fallout 3 is less interested in those sorts of things, because Fallout 3 has different priorities, and those priorities are fine. They're just not sort of my priorities. And I don't know. There's some interesting stuff in Fallout 3, but in the end, this as an experience did not hold up for me. Same as nearly everything we've done.
Yeah, I don't really know. I'm conflicted about it. I think I stand by our original assessment post Fallout 1 and Fallout 2 that the things that people say Fallout 1 and 2 do are not what Fallout 1 and 2 do.
Mm-hmm.
I also kind of don't think that the things that people say Fallout 3 does is really what Fallout 3 does.
Examples.
Well, I think there's a lot of kind of conversation about Fallout 3, or at least the way it was talked about was like it's pulling all the edges off. It's uninteresting. It doesn't have the kind of similar world perspective as Fallout 1 and 2, and I think it kind of does actually. I think that Fallout 3 does a pretty good job of pulling on very specific kinds of threads, as you're saying, right, from Fallout 1 and 2. But I guess what I've come to after playing Fallout 3 is that I agree with you 100% that, like, especially Fallout 2 has much more is much more invested in things that I find interesting, even if I think that it doesn't really sink the shot in that regard. But I don't think that Fallout 2 was necessarily successful doing those things, right? So, like, in some ways, Fallout 3 just doesn't attempt to do a thing that Fallout 2 failed at.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm not mad about that, right? Like, they're trying to go in different directions, but unfortunately, and this is kind of the disappointing part, right? Those attempts, at going toward a horizon line of interesting, gameplay mechanisms and all that kind of stuff in Fallout 2, that gets abandoned and then replaced with just bad combat. And filling time and space with bad combat. And Fallout 2, 1 and 2 filled time and space with bad combat too. I mean, that was all those overworld encounters that we just like hated, and I certainly didn't like, and ended up like, using console commands or whatever to get through, or save editors. So I don't know. I think there are massive parts of the Fallout franchise that could just be wholly abandoned, and I would be okay with that.
Yeah, I agree, right? That's kind of a similar thought that I've been having recently, where it's just like, man, if you put me in charge of a Fallout game, right? If it was like Michael is now in control of the Fallout franchise, there's just like so much that I would just like jettison and like move into other aspects of the setting that I think are sort of underutilized.
Yeah, I mean, I especially after playing Disco Elysium fairly recently, right? For Mages and Murder Dads, which should be the first episode of Mages and Murder Dads. Disco Elysium season should already be up by the time that people are hearing this. So check it out, youtube.com/rangedtouch. It's probably linked at the end of this video. But it's on our YouTube page here. The what's interesting to me about that, right, is you've only got 2 or 3 health points depending on how you play that game. You have very low health generally, and I think Fallout would be so much more interesting if there were very few weapons in the world, and when you use those weapons, it was a big deal. Like because you don't have that much ammo. I'm kind of thinking about the Metro series and the way that they kind of handle that, especially Metro 1 of like. You've only got a few bullets, and you've only got a few good bullets that are going to work and, like, will really do damage. So, like, I hope you know what you're doing here. And making it much better to talk your way out of a situation or just avoid it entirely. There's something about the way that these games center the player and, like, the player's ability to see and shoot anything that they encounter that really does, I think, rob this universe of what it could do. The possibilities, the narrative possibilities of Fallout, even within just the things that are already set in stone for us, right? That playground is so big. And weirdly enough, the playground of what you could be doing is so much smaller because you have to shoot and there's an expectation of like all this combat going on. I don't know. I just think Fallout could be way more interesting if it removed a lot of the things that, frankly, I don't know who's playing these games for the combat. I'm sure there's someone, but it's not me.
Yeah, I never hear people talking about, like, especially these contemporary Fallout games and being here for the combat. People are really here for the set dressing, the flavor, the characters, the world. So the turn in all of these DLCs toward challenge dungeons is truly perplexing in that way.
Yeah, and like I think that exploring old buildings and things like that, and like avoiding security systems and stuff, I think that would be cool no matter what, right? Like give me a like electroshock mines or whatever, right? Or like robot stun mechanisms that stun them for 10 seconds and then let me like scoop my way through it, right? Tactically, as opposed to just shooting my way through it. I just feel like there's so much room to do other stuff with Fallout, and obviously, this is blue skies thinking because I know why that's not the case, right? I mean, the kind of gamer rage that would be summoned into the world if you tinkered with this Bethesda formula in any substantial way. I mean, just look at what happens every time a Fallout game comes out, and you just see a billion people come out of the woodwork to complain about literally anything. They would be prevented by their own fans, I think, at this point, from making something like Morrowind again.
Morrowind, yeah, I was going to say, Morrowind is just so, when you read about the circumstances under which Morrowind came to be the thing it is, it really feels like a lightning in a bottle situation. Just where the expectations, the consumer kind of orientation toward the way that they made demands and things, or like it's just so different now that I think you're right.
Yeah, and so I think there's a lot of like, especially of that kind of, the Fallout 1 and 2 is better than 3 forward, and the reason for that is Bethesda. I think that answer is so much more complicated than the way that that's generally talked about. And because I think once a company hits a certain size, you are beholden to the expectations of people who are your massive, contributors at that point. I don't think that game design should be driven by audiences in that regard, but I understand why it and that's like in my blue skies, utopian universe. But I also understand exactly how it happens, right, and why it happens. In the same way that I understand why Skyrim has been ported to everything. Why Skyrim runs on the Mars rover at this point is because that's the expectation, right? That this thing will exist everywhere and is accessible everywhere. For any kind of player who wants to engage with it. Weirdly enough, the Skyrim relationship to the world is the relation of the player within Skyrim, right? You see that mountain, you can go there. You see that platform, you can go there. But that's Bethesda as a company, I think, at this point. Here's the sandbox, go play in it, do whatever you want. But the corners of the sandbox are very well defined. And so yeah, I think Fallout going forward, I think that we'll have an interesting time playing Fallout games because those corners of the sandbox are so well defined, and what we've seen in Fallout 3 is figuring out how does Bethesda itself, kind of lay those things out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it'll be interesting because our next game is going to be Fallout New Vegas, which intervenes in precisely this kind of conversation about history and lineage in key ways. It'll be interesting, really, to revisit New Vegas and see if it actually scratches the itch for writing for me. Since so much of that, so much of the narrative around that game is that it is tapping back into the older Fallout 2 kind of tradition of characterization in place. And then after that, we'll have Fallout 4, which I have never really touched. And that's Bethesda's return to Fallout and their expansion on, as we've already noted throughout this particular run, you can see in Fallout 3, Bethesda setting up their ideas for the future of Fallout. And then we see kind of a lot of those pay off in Fallout 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, we'll see what's going on. We're probably going to take a month break, maybe a little bit more. Between the end of Fallout 3 here and the beginning of Fallout New Vegas. So we'll be back in a bit. You can always check out the other things that we do. You can go to rangetouch.com to check that out. We do Just King Things, where we're talking about the works of Stephen King in publication order. Mages and Murder Dads is coming back. As I said, it should be back already. And we're playing through, Danny and I are playing through Disco Elysium. There's 10 episodes of that, I want to say. They're quite a bit longer than the old episodes of the show. They're almost 2 hours long each per episode. So, strap in for that if you're into it. And, yeah, go to patreon.com/rangetouch to support the show if you enjoy listening to it. If you back at $3 a month or more, you can get access to an RSS feed for this show and all kinds of other goodies too. So if you enjoy listening to Too Much Future, go give us some money. We'd really appreciate it. And of course, you should leave a comment for the algorithm. And you should hit the like button, and you should subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Thanks so much to everyone so far who has left a comment for the algorithm. If you could continue to do that, that would be awesome, because as I think said in the last episode, something that is deeply surprising to me is that if you just leave a comment that just says for the algorithm, it really has massively increased our numbers by like 25%, actually, of the feeds that the show's being put into. So as I've said at the end of every episode, this is just pure evil Google magic. Mm-hmm. And we need you to help us with this big, massive, ritualistic mechanism. So leave us a comment, hit that like button, or the dislike button. I don't care, but I guess I'd prefer the like button, but you can dislike it too. Engagement is engagement. But Michael, you have of course, a big question for them. If you don't just want to leave a comment that says algorithm, you can leave us a comment that tells us something. Michael, what's the big question for them this time?
What's your favorite alien to be abducted by?
And we want first name.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because they can't be your
employment history, last known address, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Blood type.
Uh-huh. If they have blood. Oh
yeah, that's true.
Who knows what's going on with the silicon-based dudes?
Mm-hmm. If they don't have blood, tell us what they have.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well, that's the end of the episode.
Until next time, folks. Remember that war never changes, but Fallout sure does.
Everything changes.